Let's jump down to Sydney, Australia, Bondi, somewhere around there. And we've worked out the technology here.
Yeah, we've sussed that out now. So
Thanks so much, Josh. Good man.
Sweet. Let's do this. Yeah, well done, Josh. Enjoyed hearing that. Firstly, guys, thanks for the opportunity to present this morning. My name's Jace. I'm from Sydney, Australia. I'm a performance coach and a trainer mentor. As Keegan touched on, I've got a background in sport, so I'll touch briefly on that this morning, give you guys a bit of context, and then roll through the presentation from there, touch on my experience with general pop, and also do a bit of a comparison from my journey through sport and how the future potentially looks with ATG coaches at the helm. So yeah, I played semi-professional rugby league here in Australia. I came through the ranks for the club named St George Illawarra Dragons. So I was with those guys from about 15 years old to 21. Had a stint up in Queensland with another club during that time, and along that timeline, I had an opportunity to go top squad with the Roosters and the Tigers, and that opportunity was derailed by injury. I ruptured my pec during those conversations. Was out for a year, and so I decided to go and do my certs, my strength and conditioning, personal training, and took that opportunity just to rebuild physically. From there, around about 2012, I had an opportunity to move over to France and play rugby league, so I took that. It was an opportunity that I really relished, intended to be there for a season, and stayed on there for about 4 years. All right, regarding coaching, from a young age, I knew that I wanted to play sport or be involved in sport in some capacity. So at 15 years old, I went and did work experience with a fella named David Boyle. So Dave here, he was an ex-NRL player. He was the strength and conditioner at several NRL clubs, NBL teams, and on the board for the Strength and Conditioning Association in Australia. From there, about 2010, I enrolled and did a diploma of fitness. I firstly started working as a personal trainer, working with general population. Went and did a business mentorship program, and I did look into franchising. But at that time, I had the opportunity to go to France. So I took that. I think that was a good decision for me. Fast forwarding to my third season in France, I actually lived with the strength and conditioner at Villeneuve-sur-Lot, a club I was playing at. So I got an opportunity to step in and assist with the strength and conditioning, and that was a really cool opportunity. And then that following season, I got to take on the head strength and conditioning role at another club. So with my experience playing in Australia, definitely coming through the junior ranks, the training system really appeared to be a one-size-fits-all approach, and it never made a lot of sense to me. We had forwards and backs and people with completely different job roles and varying capacities. And the fact that we're all doing the same sort of training, I couldn't really wrap my head around it, but at the time I definitely didn't know any better, and who was I to question what was going on, so sort of sucked it up. But yeah, being able to get that opportunity to coach in France, that was awesome. And I mean, the beauty about playing in France is the level of competition and the stakes aren't as high as what they are in Australia. So I think as a coach and as a player, the tolerance for error is greater. And so you've got a lot more wiggle room, I guess, to play around, to experiment and explore different modalities and see what kind of works. And we definitely had that opportunity. And I felt like I learned a lot from that experience. We had a little bit of a success. We won the French national championship. So it's a fond memory and something I'm really, really proud of. Yeah, so I finished up in France, came back to Australia, moved up to Sydney, super frantic pace lifestyle up here, high stress environment. So decided to step towards some life coaching and neuro-linguistic programming. Wasn't to step away from the physicality of training, but I just saw a real disconnectedness in society from who we are as humans, a real disconnect from the mind and the body. So I stepped towards a holistic approach, started mentoring some trainers, doing some workshops and presentations. and really just discussing different avenues. So going down the route of more nutrition and breath work and sunlight exposure and recovery, the realm of sleep and meditation and all these different things. And yeah, it's something that I strongly advocate now. Okay, so I believe the future of human performance is an integrated approach. And this is one of my favorite things about the ATG community and the system. I think, if we're to look at Ben Patrick's Instagram or from afar, it's really easy to think that this is just about knee ability and focuses only really around basketball. But once we dive into the research and particularly looking at your work, Keegan, it's so much more intricate. And I think, if we are diving into the realm of performance, it's super important that we as coaches and a community really look to expand our knowledge and expand those focus areas. So there's a lot of facets to this, and I think we've got this access through nutrition. I think it's important we understand that correlation of nutrition, sunlight and movement and sleep and recovery, stillness, and we're working to integrate or to develop high performing individuals, but also a high performing society. And, again, looking back to your research, Keegan, we've got this access through nutrition. I've been looking into some of Weston A. Price's stuff, some of the stuff, the back of Charles Poliquin's work. We've got that crossover, definitely in the movement world as well, with Westside Barbell and some different stuff again with Jay Schroeder's work and DB Hammer and again Charles Poliquin. And I think it's really cool just seeing what's coming out within the community itself as well. There's discussions around breath work at the moment, and there's a whole lot more to this, which I think we're going to dive more into. And as a community, it's really going to help us level up together. So my ATG journey so far, I'm currently working on client 4 submissions. I've had some FCL pain for the best part of the year. RAKP stuff's been really good for that. I spend about 5 to 10 minutes every session going over that. I really enjoy isolation type work, making sure I'm getting blood flow to the area before kicking off some of the major movements. Some of these images I've got up the top here to the side, these are some of the members I'm currently working with in Sydney. I'd say, being conservative, we've got 20 to 30 members that are experiencing the ATG system weekly. And we've seen some pretty good results so far. We haven't had a lot of lower body injuries, but we have seen quite a few shoulders and elbow complaints. And it's been interesting to apply the lower body principles to the upper body. So I've been working a lot with hand dexterity, with some of these injuries, some mobility, and then working our way up the chain. So things like wrist roller, flexion and extension, building strength through the forearms, stabilizing and strengthening up through the elbow, and likewise for biceps, triceps, strengthening up through the shoulders. We've had guys coming through the door with niggles for the best part of 6 months to a year. And I'd say, again, being on the underside of this, I'd say within the space of 2 to 3 months, guys have turned up the training now without injuries. So that's super cool and definitely promising. So here we've got some of the guys rolling through the ATG system. We've got the girls going through their loaded Jeffersons. We've got some step up progressions with Peterson and Patrick's. This was quite early on in the ATG journey too. We've got some KOT squats and seated good mornings. All right, so I'd like to zoom in on rugby league for a little bit and just do a bit of a comparative study from my experience in how things could look, as I said, with ATG coaches at the helm. For those of you that aren't too across the sport, it's physical sport, high impact, high speed collisions, a lot of rapid directional changes, lots of decelerating, accelerating. So we're ending up in compromising positions. So there's a real importance of strength through range and extreme range at that. Research shows that collisions can measure above 10 Gs. So massive collisions, NASA pilots will pass out at 9 or 10 G if they're not wearing modified G suits. So definitely going to see impact injuries. But if you look at the screen here, injuries like this to Ryan James he's just rushing up in defense, goes for a slight direction change, ends up doing his ACL. These things don't need to happen. And as you know, coaches as a part of this community, we're starting to build from the ground up, working side to side, front to back. We're really starting to reinforce or problem solve and strengthen up the body before these issues tend to arise. For Ryan James, this was really a pitfall of his career. He never really came back after this injury, so it cost him his career hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's a shame to see things like this occurring. It's definitely not an isolated case either. All right, so NRL this week, I went through every single team list and took some statistics on injuries. So every week in season, there's 272 athletes that compete in the NRL. This weekend alone, 96 players are sidelined due to injury. So it's massive. 35% of the current playing roster is out due to injury. 61% of those injuries are lower limb. In my experience, so this is coming into the grade around about 16 years old at the Dragons and finishing up in France at about 26. I suffered 13 breaks, 3 dislocations, 5 complete tendon and ligament ruptures, and chronic and ankle and hamstring injuries. So over a period of 10 years, I suffered 9 major surgeries. 5 of those were season ending, and 4 out of those 5 I missed the following season. So I really missed more games than I played during that time. I wasn't aware of these stats until I did this presentation. But I think it's pretty clear for anything in life, if we're only turning up half the time, then we're never going to have too much success. And at the end of the day, this is really why I'm so passionate about this system. You know, as I touched on earlier, when I came through playing rugby league in Australia, I think I don't think the information was really there to put us on the best path. And I would have loved to have an ATG coach at the helm really helping through some of these imbalances, and things might have been different, but there's a lot of power in this for us as coaches, and we can definitely create different pathways forward for the athletes we're working with now. And that's something I'm definitely looking forward to doing. So the attitude and approach to treatment at the time, it really was tough man dominant. Like, it almost appeared to be a prerequisite to train and play through pain. Injuries seemed to be addressed at face value without really investigating root causes. I don't think that was due to incompetence at all from the physicians. I just think there were a lot of pressure on the physicians to get players back on the field. But the end result was these injuries were recurring, and that was certainly the case for me, and it was super frustrating. And again, it wasn't an isolated case. I saw this across the board with many players. Testing was really limited to bilateral strength. There were no clear standards like we see in the ATG system. There was nothing really to work towards. So I think we're going to see a bit of a changing of the guard there. So if we do compare this to the ATG difference, I've got a quote here from Albert Einstein: "A problem defined as a problem half solved." So we've only got to look to the ATG principles. We train pain-free. We build from the ground up. We balance left to right, front to back. Straight away, to me, these principles, that's the investigation part done. So we're starting to sift through any imbalances, any weaknesses, and particularly for the case of an athlete, we can uncover potential issues before they become problematic. So we're saving ourselves a lot of time, a lot of dramas, and in an athlete's case, potentially a lot of money there too. So there's a shifting focus in training in numbers. When I was coming through, the programs were heavily upper body dominant. There was a heavy focus on the bench press. Athletes were certainly chasing these numbers. Secondary to that, there was a focus on chin-ups and dips, and then squats and deadlifts were there, but they felt like a bit of an afterthought. Training was non-diversified. As I spoke about earlier, it was a bit of a one-size-fits-all approach. There was a heavy focus on straight and low reps. I believe that high velocity movements were undervalued, and there was persistent overreaching. So resulted in an increased rate of injury. And certainly for the case of these younger athletes, we're seeing a lot of overuse injuries, and you've got guys coming through that potentially don't have, that aren't physically mature enough to deal with the workloads that are getting put through the system. So the goal of the session was to get the most out of every session. It was really a more is more mindset. If we are to compare this to the ATG system now, I believe, coaches have a really thorough understanding of bulletproofing. And this how and why is so important, not just for the coach, but also for the athlete. If we can clearly and concisely explain how and why we're doing things, it creates a real clear intention behind the movements, the purposes, and that in turn creates buy-in. Buy-in leads to adherence, and strong adherence leads to a result. There's an understanding of hardware v software. I really love the muscle numbers. That's something I wasn't aware of when I came through. There was definitely an understanding to get bigger and stronger. I remember approaching coaching staff about this, but there were no clear standards. So muscle numbers makes a lot of sense to me. And also the standards, I'm excited to see where these head specifically to different sports. I've been following some of Paddy Lane's work, who's the strength and conditioner at the Sydney City Roosters, and he's following the ATG system, I believe. And already he's got some varying standards like the dumbbell row and flat press at 50% body weight for 10 reps. I think we're going to see more and more of this, and it's just going to add to the progressions of sports and performance and different results. We're also seeing major changes in movement selection. I think movement selection's been undervalued in the past, and we're seeing diversified training. So what I'm talking about there is long range v short range, special reps, high rep work, super max efforts. And I think we're going to see more and more things like ROKP work, reverse sleds and hurdle jumps. There was definitely a saying when I was playing sport that you can't teach speed, and I think we're going to get the upper hand there when we're talking about reverse sleds and hurdle jumps and vertical jumps and these things. And we're starting to train the accelerators, but also the decelerators. So again, look forward to seeing what's happening in that space in the future. Now, the goal from the ATG system is super different to the current status quo. The goal of the session is to get to the next session. I think that's a really profound takeaway. So the end result, I really do believe we're going to see bigger, stronger, faster, and better athletes. So to break that down, what I really mean is we're seeing more bulletproof, more structurally balanced, and more physically resilient athletes. At the end of the day, it's the most resilient athlete that wins. I've certainly seen that in my case. I've got a quote here from Bear Bryant. It says, "It's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that. It's the will to prepare to win that matters." And I think that's a really good summation of the ATG system. Albert Einstein once said that he believes compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And we hear Ben Patrick talk about money in the bank with, like, let's say we're talking about tib raises. And I think that's so true. We're turning up to each session and putting money in the bank and prepping up for our futures, and we're going to reap the rewards down the track. So the ATG future, for myself personally, I do have a goal of getting to level 8. We've got a 2-year action date on that, so July 23. I'm currently in the process of opening my own gym. It's going through council processes now. So I'm looking into programming and how ATG can be implemented, so that's exciting. And I've chatted to my business partner about creating pathways for ATG coaches, and that's really about just creating a high quality standard. Keegan, you just spoke about this. I think true knowing really comes at an experiential level, to feel that's true knowing. And I think that's important as coaches coming through. If we are to maintain a standard for people to at least buy into the ATG system and get an experiential level of knowing of how that works. If we're going to teach something across or teach something down, it's one thing to have the ideas and the education, but unless we've put ourselves under the bar and experienced that firsthand, then we're never really truly going to know how that feels, and how else can we put someone else through that unless we've done that ourselves. I'm excited about future prospects with ATG. As I said earlier, I think it really is a changing of the guard. Josh, you also touched on this in your presentation. The ATG applications across the sporting world, and I really do believe that we're going to see some ATG world records in the not too distant future. And hopefully some of you guys on this call will be a part of those world records as coaches. And lastly, I'd just like to finish up saying that this really is an opportunity for us as coaches in a community to be a part of a broader solution. I think as societies, we've really grown quite weak. There's a disconnectedness between the mind and the body. Things are at a constant beck and call. If we want food, we click a button and it sort of arrives. And it really is breeding a weak society. So we've got the ability to bring people back to themselves and take people on that internal journey and really build and strengthen themselves up, increase that willpower and create a thriving society. So that's it from me. Appreciate you hearing me out. I'd love any feedback and look forward to hearing your questions.
Great job there, Jace. Really, really enjoyed that. You always learn something when people, we have these opportunities as well, podcasts or presentations. I didn't know as much of you. Who were you strength coach for there in France?
Yeah, so I'm stepped down to the club at L'Oreal, and that was awesome. I just loved that opportunity. So we really got to trial a bunch of different ideas, and we had a leadership group that was giving feedback on that too. And we took a team that came last the season before, and ended up winning that competition. So it was super cool.
Yeah, amazing. It's exciting journey that you've been on, and your footy didn't go the way you kind of wanted it to at the time, but there's so much learning and value in those experiences that now you can, influence other people's journeys in a better way that you probably wouldn't have felt the same passion for if you'd have, had it all your own way as an athlete, I guess.
100%. I think, Josh did a good job of touching on that too. I think certain things do happen for a reason. And when, we touch on that experiential knowledge, when you go through any injuries too, you learn things differently. And when there's resistance, and, we've got to work through that, and it builds and strengthens us. So, it's been cool. And I'm really happy with where I'm at now. And as I said, I'm super passionate about this, and I'm trying to get other coaches involved, and it's slowly happening here in Sydney. And in different circles, there's a lot of people talking about it. So I think there's going to be more and more people join this journey shortly. Yeah,
I think I think everyone progresses more when they've got people around them that are going on the journey as well. Like even, I live on an island of 400 people, and there's a guy who tore his Achilles, and he's an Austrian guy. He's a really nice guy. And we've started training together, and just having one other person here that's sort of on this journey, even that has helped me, and I've been training for a long time and worked with lots of top athletes. And, this guy, he's run some ultra marathons and stuff. Like he's had a good go at things, but just having someone to share experiences with, I think we all need that. Like it's valuable to have someone around us that's going on the journey. And I value the online thing massively. And I think you can get so much out. Like we've never met each other face to face, but I feel a connection and with a lot of you guys, but then it's still great to have that, that local thing as well, of like actually training with other people on the journey. And I'm excited for you to sort of build more of that community there. And I think, from my side, I can see things growing in Sydney a lot. And, if you want to, if you've got a gym and you want to be at the heart of that, there's a great opportunity within that. We had some good things with Real Movement with Simon Bungate out at Clean Shred. And, we had 20, 30 coaches, at his gym lots of times. And I think that led to lots of good positive things for him. And, he started an equipment company and whatnot. And I think those opportunities are there for everybody, to be a local leader, to reach out to other coaches, to open up the opportunity to teach other coaches and all that sort of stuff. So whatever you want to do, which I know Jace wants to, Jace is already doing that coach mentoring. And I love the holistic kind of message that you brought forward there, Jace, as well. Like I haven't spoken about it as much with ATG because, ATG has been focused on primarily the ATG journey, but it will come more and more. And Real Movement and always my approach with athletes, I did speak a lot about lifestyle factors and really encouraging them to shift with diet and, just philosophy on life, I guess, rather than just being turning up for game day and hoping things go well, but actually trying to help them to live good lives and look after each other and, be valuable members of society and all those sorts of things. So you see there's a lot of great philosophy in this group coming out. And it'll spread into those other factors that contribute to performance as well. So yeah, appreciate you sharing around that too.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you.
Good, man. Yeah, if you've got any questions or you want to connect directly with Jace, feel free for that as well, guys.